Hello everybody, and welcome to Some Patches Required, a show where we hope to educate and entertain you on the ever-turbulent games industry. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Zach.
And I am your other host, Aaron.
And before we get into the meat and potatoes of our topic today, GTA 6 Online, I do want to just say thank you to all of the new and returning listeners. If you don't mind too terribly much, if this is your third time listening to us, or potentially first or second, and you like what you're hearing, please like and subscribe, hit that engagement button. It's awesome, and it really helps us out. In addition to that, if you don't mind sharing us with a friend or perhaps a mortal enemy, as we like to say, that would also be pretty cool.
Yeah, I would certainly agree. It really is a great way for us to, well, really the only way that we can sort of grow as a show, and any and all efforts in that regard are much appreciated.
And also, if we're being completely honest, this is the second time we've recorded this episode, so it will make the additional hour worth of effort worth it even more for us,
Yes,
especially with this topic that we tread cautiously against. You'll understand.
Yeah. We're going to Zach, I won't rob you of your wonderful framing device for introducing the topic, but I will say that this is one that may draw some passionate responses depending on how actively you listen, or whether you just tend to react to thumbnails and titles of things.
Yeah. Which admittedly, partially some of that's on us from the narrative and or the titling and thumbnailing, but regardless of any of that, without further ado, we're going to chat a little bit today about GTA 6 and why, even with massive unit sales, it could very well be seen, at least by investors, as a financial failure. So,
What?
yeah, it's crazy, but there's some validity here, and it's okay if that part pisses you off. But to dive into it, GTA 6 has been announced for November of 2026, and Take-Two expects this game to generate somewhere between $1.3 billion and $1.5 billion in just the first quarter, or the first 4.5 months, and this is according to an SEC filing. And in addition to that, there are a lot of analysts that are talking about this game selling easily over 15 to 20 million copies in the very first day alone. I believe that the GTA 5 sold 11 million copies in day one. So just crazy numbers that we're talking about in terms of the amount of revenue that this game is going to generate day one. So you might be asking, well, Zach, then how is this game capable of failing financially? If it's this like critically acclaimed thing. I mean, Aaron, how many views did this thing get on YouTube? I mean, it's like one of
all of them.
Yeah, all of them. One of the most viewed videos on YouTube is the GTA 6 announcement trailer.
And yet, "Aw fuck, I can't believe you've done this" is still languishing in the single-digit millions, I believe. It's genuine injustice.
It's not a fair world out there at all. But the key here that I am alluding to is that these big corporations, what they actually care about, they don't give a shit about unit sales. That's actually not true. It's everything together, but they care even more about live service revenue. And so this is a wonderful story about how live services come to GTA 6 to ruin the day and potentially ruin this game that you all have loved. Now, this is speculative to a degree. Some of this information is not speculative. It's just true. But more than likely, GTA will do okay. I mean, it will certainly hit its unit sales, as we said. It just is facing... GTA 6 is facing a really difficult task which is to say that it needs to beat GTA 5, which is one of the best-selling games of all time and most engaged with live services of all time. And so I'm going to stop bearing the lead and just comment that Take-Two is functionally now a live service company. And what I basically mean by that is, according to SEC filings, roughly 78% of their fiscal year 26 net bookings came from what they call recurrent consumer spending, which is virtual currency, add-on content, in-game purchases, and in-game advertising. You know what's not included in there, Aaron? Unit sales for their games.
Yeah. Yeah. I think to sort of like double down on what you've just said, it is basically a statistical impossibility at this point that GTA 6, the single most expensive entertainment product to have ever been produced, will almost certainly make its money back on just unit sales within the pre-order window. Depending on, and weirdly enough, some of these like claims are unverified. But you can find analyst reports suggesting that GTA 6, has already made like a more north of $1 billion, like $1 billion in its first hour of pre-orders. Again, that's not been officially confirmed by Rockstar, so that's all sort of industry reports in quotations. So take that very much with a grain of salt. But the idea here is that GTA 6, by any reasonable metric, will be an immediate smash hit runaway success just based on unit sales. But that's not what made GTA 5 the massive success that it is, right? GTA 5 is a massive success due in part to a really long tail on sales of the actual base game. And then, yeah, the recurring revenue from GTA Online is 100% the thing that has subsidized the most expensive entertainment product ever made, right? GTA 6 does not exist in its current form without the bundles and bundles and boatloads and wheelbarrows full of cash being generated by GTA Online every single day. And then, kind of copy and paste that model over to, the various sports games that 2K is involved with and all that fun stuff. And yeah, you absolutely have a studio that's entire business model is really, the longevity of it is based on live service spending and the live service model and the live service content mill. And GTA 6, while a guaranteed single player success story, is not actually a guaranteed live service success story for a good handful of reasons. And that is sort of the crux of our idea here, is that there is a hill for them to climb and there's a lot for them to prove, and things may not be quite as black and white obvious success as they may seem at face value.
Yeah. And just to hit on GTA 5 and the revenue that it's generated, it's important to realize that in unit sales, it did bring in a pretty impressive roughly $5 billion. Again,
is that
commendable.
all?
But the game as a total, or in total, has brought in roughly $10 billion. The other $5 billion that was brought in for the game has come from GTA Online. And of that $5 billion, 74% of that has come from shark cards. So we're talking about a game with a very big long tail, like you said, that's bringing in half of its revenue from recurrent spending.
And do you want to explain what shark cards are for people who might not be familiar with GTA Online?
Yes. So admittedly, I don't know if this has changed any since I played the game, but it's basically the premium currency that gets utilized in the game to get different cosmetics and purchase different items. I think in our last recording, Aaron, you said that a big portion of GTA 5 Online is just showing off your cars, your houses, all of these other things. And that's basically what shark cards afford you, is these bragging rights or the swag or these cosmetics that help you really build out your character in the game.
Yeah, and this is something that we'll touch on when we get a little bit more into the difficulties of it. But yeah, one of the reasons that people feel, in my opinion, so compelled to spend in these games, well, in this game specifically, is that GTA is possibly the ultimate power fantasy, right? I mean, you're building your own criminal empire in a single player story, or in the multiplayer game, you're executing heists and, getting high-rise apartments and fancy cars and flashy outfits and so much of that style is based around sort of flashy and ostentatious belongings and status symbols. And when you're in an online environment, that sort of thing really matters, right? That's clout, that's investment, that's time, that's how you're taken seriously, that's how you're seen as a major player, which, if that's part of the fantasy, is a big part of the fantasy. So, facilitating all of that through these shark cards, it makes sense that people are shelling out for the cosmetics at a level that, probably basically everyone but Fortnite would be pretty jealous of.
And I think it's also important to call out, like, this game's been out for 13 years. Like, I mean, like a very long time, right? And so if you're spending a lot of money in a game, you're probably going to be more likely to want to spend money in a game that has been out for a very long period of time. Similarly, like World of Warcraft, it's why people are willing to shell out a lot of money in that game. If a game has enough longevity, it feels like you've permanently got the online content that you're buying. And I think it reinforces the idea that it's safe to spend money in that ecosystem. I bring this up again because, one of the big problems that GTA Online specifically is going to face is that $5 billion long tail revenue that I mentioned with GTA 5, it needs to beat that. And the reason I'm saying that is not intrinsically because anyone has said it, but it's because that's always been how video games work. If you listen to some of our older videos, or you listen or read, I guess you could listen, some of Jason Schreier's books, one of the things that becomes very apparent when you talk about how corporate games are is that you need exponential growth. The GTA 6 Online needs to be exponentially more financially successful than GTA 5 in order to be considered a success. It is not enough to just make more money. And so that's what's going to be increasingly more difficult, not just for GTA 6 Online, but any of these live service games that decide to do a sequel, is that when you're competing with one of the most successful games of all time, GTA 5, you're going to have a hard time monetizing that better, especially because, to our earlier point, people have been buying shark cards. They've been investing in the GTA 5 game and their character's life in that game for over a decade. It is going to be hard to move those players over to a completely new experience. And in addition to that, roughly 4% of GTA 5 Online's player base drives the majority of the revenue. These people are so lovingly referred to as whales. And according to
not
data,
our term, just an industry term.
yeah, not our term. We're not calling people whales. It's not very loving, but still, according to data, people in that segment, that high spend segment, Aaron, they are the hardest to convert from a game because they have the highest loyalty to the game. And it makes sense because they've spent more time, they've spent more money engaging in that world, in that economy.
Yeah, exactly. And it really does, especially for a simulation as sort of robust as GTA is. And I will, again, wear my inexperience here on my sleeve. I've not played GTA Online. If you've been listening to this show for any length of time, that probably does not come as a massive surprise. I'm not really an MMO guy. I'm not really a multiplayer guy. Neither of those are just my way to relax or spend my free time. So GTA Online and I are not exactly simpatico. But I do understand, like, the compelling nature of the simulation and why it would be appealing to players. And with something like this, where people have been spending time and money investing in not just a nice wardrobe, but basically an entire digital life filled with meaningful to them status symbols and trophies of various achievements and memories of good times and everything. If you are one of the top 4% spenders, there's going to need to be a pretty compelling sales pitch to get you to abandon your apartment in Los Santos to go back to Vice City, right? Why would you necessarily want to start all over again? And it's not to say that a new, school of how do whales travel in groups? What do they call that?
Pods.
Pods.
I think it's
yeah.
pod, or at least it's dolphins.
Well, let's roll with pods just because it sounds better than herd. But yeah, if a new pod of whales pops up in GTA 6 and everyone has their cake and can eat it too, then that's, by which I mean 2K, then that's like great. But trying to convert those people specifically is going to be so difficult because they're so entrenched. It's like, it's not a good comparison, but I was about to say it's like removing a tick that's been on you for too long. It's just all dug in. You know, it doesn't want to leave. It's already spent its time there and it's getting something. So yeah, I don't know. The 4% thing is definitely concerning because at that point, even if you can migrate a staggering 96% of your player base to a new and unproven system and platform, that 4% is really what's driving your revenue. And they're the hardest to move. That's just kind of concerning in terms of a strategy, more so than actual numbers, right? Because most of what we're talking about here is stuff that we're going to have to see play out slowly over the next, potentially 10 plus years in order to know whether this game is a success at the scale that 2K wants it to be. But at least at the moment, it's worth mentioning that there are very few details out about what a GTA 6 Online even looks like. So we don't really have very much to go on in terms of how they're going to potentially try and convert players, how they're going to try and combat the two games that they'll have to run simultaneously, cannibalizing each other, if they are in fact going to be running two games simultaneously, or if they're going to just expand the existing one, even though we kind of have some thoughts on that too. So yeah, there's just a billion different factors that could end up leading to the online component of the game just not quite hitting the mark, or hitting the mark perfectly, but still not surpassing the earnings of GTA 5.
Yeah. No, it's a very interesting situation. And in addition to that, the other big headwind, though I think this one is in some ways less of a headwind than the converting players, but it's just worth mentioning, is that the majority of the world is in a bit of an economic crisis. The prices of everything are going up. AI and the cost or the demand for compute rather has, drastically increased hardware costs for game consoles. And so in order to even play GTA 6, assuming you don't already have a next-gen console, is going to cost you roughly $600. And
minimum.
Yeah, minimum. And well, unless you get a used console, which is an option, but this is the best we can do, is, give you what the brand new console MSRP would be. So assuming that you're buying a brand new console, it's going to be $600. And This has been a notoriously weak console generation for console sales. There's a lot of data on that. We actually did an episode, I believe it was maybe last year or the year before, talking about how people hope that GTA 6 will reinvigorate the console market by basically forcing, or, well, it's not forcing, but, coercing people into buying a console that they otherwise would not get just to play GTA 6. Some people will definitely do that. I mean, I basically just bought a Switch 2 to play Pocopia, which is roughly the same amount of money in a funny way. Everyone can make fun of me as they desire, but $600 is a lot of money. In an economic state where there is a lot of uncertainty, people generally are saving money, and people are buying less and less video games every single year. And I think the statistic is people buy like 2 new video games a year, or they play 2 new video games a year on average, the vast majority of people. But even assuming the most expensive video games, that's going to be $80 each. So that's $160. We're talking about well above spending $160. And people have obviously been saving for this moment. Like, we've known this is coming, so some people will have money set aside. But my bigger comment here is just, this is an economic or an interesting economic period that we find ourselves in. And not everyone that wants to play GTA 6 will have the financial opportunity to play it, realistically.
Yeah. And it's not to say that consoles in yesteryear were like cheap. You know, a video game console or a gaming PC has always been a sizable investment, right? Regardless of which generation it came from. It was very rarely the sort of thing that a person could pick up on a whim, I would say, right? You know, going all the way back to the Nintendo Entertainment System. These are Christmas gifts. These are things to have been saved up for. So I'm not trying to say that it's exactly, you know, uncharted territory, but yeah, the economy is bad. You know, most people need to spend out the price of a full-priced video game to get to work because gas prices are twice what they were this time last year. And then the cost of living has gone up, and the demand for compute means that there are price hikes coming, and price hikes coming, and price hikes coming, and everything is more expensive than it used to be. And yeah, I may not be the right person to ask about this. I can't see myself shelling out $600 to play one specific game. I already have a PS5, and I'm not planning on picking GTA 6 up at launch just because there are other things that I can play at the moment. The game doesn't need my help. It will still be waiting for me whenever I have time for it. And I don't think that I'm going to miss out on the zeitgeist in a profound enough way to motivate me to spend $80 to $100, much less a minimum of $600, and that's to play the game on Xbox Series S at its upcoming price. Because I think there's a price hike coming for the Series S. We found out not too terribly long ago. But yeah, will this game move hardware? Yeah, probably it will, because there's definitely been a lot of people waiting for an excuse to get into the new generation of consoles, and GTA 6 may just very well be that excuse for them. But it does definitely bring up a point, which is to say that one of the figures, Zach, that you had pulled were the like total addressable market numbers that get bandied about here, and I think the number pitched is like 3.4 billion. But 35% of those players are, you know, exclusively on mobile devices, more or less, right? And a mobile device is also an expensive thing, but it is generally speaking considered a utility that pretty much already everybody has. And the idea that you're going to convert hyper-casual players most likely interested in playing, you know, various timer-free, you know, Tetris derivatives in Solitaire and other microtransaction-laden hyper-casual games, you're not probably going to be able to convert very many of those people to a $600 purchase just to play one game. I think that is pretty ambitious, but that's neither here nor there, really.
Well, basically what you're referencing with that is there's a statistic that since GTA 5 released in 2013, that the total addressable market of users increased by 1.2 billion to 3.4 to the number of 3.4 billion. So now the current addressable market is 3.4 billion. Basically, the reason that number matters is there's been a sizable increase in the number of people that play video games. But to your point, Aaron, based on the data that we've got in that 35% of people being mobile only, of that new 1.2 billion players, roughly 420 million of them will never touch a console. And the remaining 780 million that were brought on, that's not the total addressable market for GTA 6. That's just how many people are left over. It's difficult to figure out what the total addressable market is for GTA 6, because I guess the easiest way to at least look at it until it comes out on console is you'd have to figure out, of that 780, how many of them own a console. And then even if that would be a smaller portion, because then you have to look at, okay, who is not a child? You'd have to take out any Nintendo console, because it's not releasing on Nintendo, as far as I'm aware. And, you know, there's like all these caveats. So basically, the thing that GTA 6 Online needs to do in order to be considered a success is it needs to either bring over a decent portion of the high spenders, the whales from GTA 5 Online, and then supplement whatever it loses with new high spenders, or It just needs to pull over some of the high spenders and monetize the normal players at a higher rate. And there's a lot of information out there that suggests that's exactly what they're going to do. So if you're someone that hates the monetization of GTA 5, I hate to tell you that it's not going to get better in 6, probably, because we've got people like the Bank of America and other analyst groups talking about how they expect GTA 6 to monetize at a higher rate than GTA 5, and they want it to monetize like Fortnite. And so right now, GTA 5 is actually, interestingly enough, Aaron, underperforming from a monetization perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that comes up in a lot of articles. And so that's going to be a big driver in GTA 6 Online, whatever that ends up looking like, because everyone that is an investor expects this game to have a significant long tail that's bringing in more money than 5. What does that probably mean? It's difficult to 100% say, but it probably means that there's going to be more microtransactions, more bullshit to deal with when it comes to recurrent spending in the game. And generally speaking, just based on some of the forums that I was reading when doing research here, I do think that's going to piss off a certain segment of the community, as microtransactions tend to with everyone, which I think is reasonable to clarify. I think if you pay a full price for a video game, it is very reasonable to be annoyed that you have to spend a bunch of money to interact with it more, basically.
Right, especially when that price tag to unlock all available content is already $100. Right, because and this will be a very brief little component, but like there's two different editions of GTA 6. There's the $80 base edition, which is already at basically the existing cap for the price of a AAA game, and it includes the base game and the normal stuff that you'd get. And then the $100 special edition includes access to various shops throughout the world, and different like sort of cosmetic purchasable places that are, I guess, just sort of barred to you if you don't buy the $100 version or the upgrade pack, which we don't exactly know how that's going to look actionably in the world, but the gist of it is they are carving out sections of content that are interweaved with the story if you don't spend the extra $20 to upgrade to the $100 version of the game. So yeah, I do think that it is very, very, very justifiable to be frustrated when a game asks you to spend $100 and then still asks you to continue to spend out with microtransactions. I do think that it is justifiable to be frustrated about that. I understand that the suits need the number to always go up. The line must go up, but I think it's understandable for consumers to be pissed off about that.
I also wonder from the consumer perspective if there is going to be any level of like a lack of trust toward Rockstar with the online version of this game, because not so long ago, at least in the grand scheme of things over the course of the last 13 years, they tried to do Red Dead Redemption 2 online, and it kind of failed.
Yeah,
they weren't
pretty
able
spectacularly.
Yeah, they weren't able to monetize that game to the rate that they needed to, which was, in comparison to GTA 5, everything's going to be compared to that, right? And so they basically didn't support it to the level that it needed to become its own live service online world. And the reason I bring this up is because, one, some people may look at that and be like, why would I spend money in GTA 6 when they killed Red Dead online? Like, there's no guarantee that they're not just going to do the same thing. I think that's a little bit less likely, but, just going to mention it. And two, it illustrates that they don't have a 100% track record of making successful online live services, right?
Yes.
Technically, their track record is 50-50. It's GTA 5 and it's Red Dead Redemption 2 online, and Red Dead Redemption 2 online did not work out for them. And again, I want to clarify when I'm saying all this. This is not a judgment of the game and whether it's fun online. This is all about money. I just want to, get ahead of it, because we are not criticizing the actual gameplay. We are criticizing basically capitalism and what it views as success. So you can completely love Red Dead Redemption 2 online. I thought it was fun in a lot of ways, but that doesn't matter to the people that actually make the decisions here, right? And so, anyway, it's a 50-50 chance, technically, on whether this succeeds or not. I will say, in fairness to GTA 6 Online, I do think it's a little bit easier for them to create the world and the economics of microtransactions for GTA than it is for Red Dead. I think Red Dead is maybe not the fantasy that as many people want to be in, and it's harder to be as creative with like your shark card spending in something like a Red Dead, but a little bit less complicated in a modern setting like GTA.
Yeah.
So I don't think GTA 6 Online will flop in the way that Red Dead 2 Online did, but it's worth bringing up.
Yeah, it's definitely worth bringing up just because it is. I think it's imperative to remember that even though Rockstar has released a string of bangers, right? Like, I think you can pretty justifiably look at Rockstar's track record and say they are hit makers, right? That is a studio that does not miss when it comes to quality, when it comes to delivering games that sell, when it comes to delivering games that connect with players. I think that is a pretty fair assessment, but I think it is important to remember that they are not, by any stretch, infallible. And I think Red Dead Redemption 2 Online is a really good indicator of that, just because the game struggled out of the gate. It launched as GTA Online, whatever that looks like for 6, and we'll talk about that, I think, for a little bit here. Whatever that will look like, it will launch after the base game, right? And then with Red Dead, it just struggled to find a robust audience, and then that struggled to sort of reinforce consistent support for the game and new content for the game, and it was just never fleshed out to the degree that I think people were hoping and expecting, those who were committed to that fantasy. And then the numbers just weren't there because there weren't as many people committed to that fantasy as there were people still committed to the fantasy of GTA Online as it existed in that year. So yeah, they are not infallible as a studio. The GTA Online is a runaway success that it's almost hard to tell if it is a runaway success in the style of Skyrim, which was successful not because it was a Bethesda game, but because it was Skyrim. It was successful not because it was an Elder Scrolls game, but because it was Skyrim, right? It was one of those once-in-a-generation lightning strike success stories that is very difficult to account for and sets, Elder Scrolls 6 up for a borderline impossible task, which is to eclipse the lifetime sales of Elder Scrolls 5. It is difficult to tell whether GTA 6's Online is going to become the sort of cultural moment that GTA 5 did and catch on the way that it did on its own merits, or whether GTA 5's Online was just sort of like a flash in the pan. But I doubt it's a flash in the pan, and I know that Rockstar is going to monetize the hell out of this game, and if there's stuff that's not working, it is important enough to them that they will just keep cracking at it until they find something that works. They will be able to throw money at the problem and more or less fix it in that regard, potentially. And we'll talk about some of that momentarily, but I think, yeah, it is worth mentioning that, they didn't start out as a live service studio, right? They don't have generations and generations of experience with this. There's a lot of stuff that they would have learned from GTA Online through 5, but it's unlikely that they are, operating at the same, level of proficiency as a studio that's been doing this exact thing exclusively for a really long time. So yeah, they have a spotty track record with Online, and that is probably worth having a moment of pause for, but it's probably also not worth, casting doom and gloom just because we still don't know what the game's going to look like at all. So it's kind of borrowing trouble in that regard. And also, yeah, it's going to be a very well-supported game because it has to be. This cannot fail. And I don't mean that in the sense that it's too big to fail. I mean it in the sense that they can't let it fail. It is imperative that it not fail.
Yeah, if GTA 6 doesn't do well from a long tail perspective with its recurrent revenue, that is going to be a big problem for Rockstar in the future specifically. I mean, partially just because of the amount of support that they funnel into the online live service portion of the game. If they being Take-Two decide that, they don't want to put up with that price anymore, then they will lay people off. We're years away, I think, from this being a real consideration that has to happen, because I think that, to your point, Aaron, they'll give this game a lot of oxygen to try and find its landing, even if it doesn't stick it immediately. But yeah, if the live service portion of GTA 6 doesn't do well, the game in totality will be looked at as a failure, is what I suspect will ultimately happen. And so when it comes to converting people to the new game, I think that's where things get a little bit interesting, but they also become really difficult, because the CEO of Take-Two, Zelnick, has basically said that they will continue to support GTA 5 online. They have Strauss Zelnick has said that they don't want to get rid of GTA 5 online, which makes sense because it's still generating revenue. Why get rid of this thing that's generating a bunch of revenue? The problem that poses, though, is it does create a thing where they need to support GTA 6 online and GTA 5 online. And more than likely, these will be two separate experiences and not two things that are interconnected. Just because unless they decided to invest the technical infrastructure required to have these two things merged together, it's very unlikely that they would want to bring down the graphics and the specs of GTA 6 online to be at parity with GTA 5.
And that's something that we touched on in the first recording of this episode, that GTA is kind of in some ways a victim of its own success, in that there is no opportunity for a lower fidelity version of the game, right? The fidelity is one of the biggest selling points of a new Rockstar game. It's going to be the best looking thing on the market. It's going to be the most performant thing. It's going to be the best tech showcase for what video games are capable of in this era, whatever era it is that the game is releasing in, right? And it's important at that moment to remember that GTA 5 launched during the PS3, Xbox 360 era, which lands us in a couple of interesting spots. One, it does kind of still look like that game, even though you can upscale stuff, you can remaster the game and re-release it on hardware 2 generations in a row, and keep putting out good updates for the PC version and stuff like that. But the game is still pretty old by video game standards, which means that they cannot get away with selling you GTA 6 online that looks and feels exactly like GTA 5 online. That's just not something that's going to be in the playbook for the summer blockbuster of video games releasing in the fall into winter. But this staggering tentpole of a release can't afford to downplay its visuals like that. So no, I agree with you. Infrastructurally speaking, probably just in terms of the actual basis for what the game's built off of, it needs some updates in terms of its bones. So yeah, for the foreseeable future, I can't imagine the two experiences being intertwined. But does that then mean that the two games will be cannibalizing each other? Will you have access to GTA 5 online through the same portal that you have access to GTA Online? Is it the sort of thing where you would be able to share currencies or bring some of your stuff over, or how are we trying to convert, or are we just keeping them specifically siloed away from each other? I think these are all things worth considering when talking about how these two games will coexist without impacting each other's bottom lines negatively.
Yeah, I mean, the reality of the situation is the best case scenario for Take-Two and Rockstar would be for them to completely honor the microtransactions that people have purchased in GTA 5 and then have a higher fidelity, higher res version for GTA 6 online. I think that's very unlikely, because I think that would be a lot of effort and money going into art and redoing assets that would ultimately not generate any revenue for them. It would just be a full payment that Take-Two and Rockstar are making to basically convert users over. So I think it's very unlikely that we see all of your cosmetics and items move over to GTA 6. Now, there is a world where some of them, especially more premium items that they sold to you, might move over, just because I've seen that in some other games where there's like epic skins or legendary skins, and sometimes those will transfer. But it's very unlikely that everything will move over to GTA 6, just because of the amount of time and effort and, more importantly, money involved in doing that. Plus, there's probably a lot of stuff that they would really love to try and get people to get monetized on twice.
Oh, yeah.
Even though that's not a great look.
No.
It's going to make them more money. And
Right.
I think they're going to want to try and take advantage of that.
But, like, why even make a new game if they don't want you to buy the stuff again? Do you know what I mean? Like, they clearly want you to buy the stuff again. They clearly want you to begin anew in a new city.
Yeah.
You know, and rebuild your riches and your empire and your penthouse and get your car collection back. But it's going to be new cars in a new city and a new penthouse. That's evidently what they want. But, you know, they also can't afford to completely alienate the whales that are already in GTA 5. Otherwise, they risk running very much adry.
Well, what's interesting is, like, they need a compelling reason for people to shift over to GTA 6 Online. And the reality is that GTA 6 Online, outside of being connected to what's going to probably be the game of the year for 2026, it's not going to have more content than GTA 5 Online does. There's not going to be as much stuff to buy. There's not going to be as many like DLCs and heists and all these exciting things that people, you know, are participating in GTA 5 Online for, right? So the GTA 6's version of online just doesn't really feel overly compelling if you are a person that has all of their stuff in 5. Like, there's just not a lot to do. And so I'm sure people will check out GTA 6. I'm just not convinced that people will immediately start spending a bunch of money. And to your earlier point of like cannibalization of revenue, I absolutely think they'll cannibalize each other. I think that there's a non-zero chance that some people may go to GTA 6, enjoy it, and then hear that GTA 5 has more stuff in it. And if they're willing to put up with like lower graphics and like some of the things that just won't be as good on an older game, they might even convert backwards. That might be less likely. I'd say that's probably less likely, but some people may do it because there's a huge RP community in GTA 5 Online. So like maybe it really drives growth there, but that's not what Zelnick wants. That's not what that team ultimately wants, because they need people moving into the new fancy money-making machine that's better at making money and draining you of cash, right? Like, so I do think at some point they will have to stop supporting GTA 5, because unless they can find a way to bring GTA 5 in those into 6 and monetize it to the same degree, I just don't. I think it's going to hurt them. They're going to have to pay for 2 teams to basically keep up a live service, like 2 live services. And they're going to want those high spenders from GTA 5 to move over to 6. So even though Zelnick's basically said we'll continue supporting GTA 5 online, I do think there will be it's for how long, but also how long will they continue to make new content to make people want to stay in it? I wouldn't be surprised if that is the first thing that gets cut. They stop releasing as much for GTA 5. Yeah, sure, maybe you can play it, but all of the new content is going to come out on 6. The only other thing I would say is it's also possible they might do some like cross bundles where you can buy items in 5 and 6.
Yeah.
World of Warcraft has done that with WoW Classic and WoW Retail, but we'll see. It's all speculation because they really haven't elaborated on their GTA 6 model yet. Online model.
Yeah, and we don't know what that looks like. And that brings me to sort of my closing thought on the GTA Online element of GTA's success, right? Because we're talking about a game that is it's both unprecedented in terms of the scope of its inevitable sales, its industry influence, and also the problems that it presents itself with. So you've got, obviously, it's going to be the fastest selling game probably ever. It's probably going to be one of the best selling games ever, depending on how long the tail is. The reviews are almost certainly going to be very good. Whether fan sentiment will match that is, always up for debate, because that stuff changes with the wind. But the single player success is a virtual guarantee. Insofar as almost anything can be guaranteed, that one can pretty much be guaranteed. The online component, when GTA 5 Online launched, it was basically competing with nothing. There was, I mean, it's not that it was competing with nothing, but there was nothing exactly like it, right? The live service model of games had yet to really blossom into the confusing graveyard of games that it is now, right? Where every third game is a live service. And, a handful of the chosen ones that do succeed spectacularly. But the attention economy is the result of that, right? We're talking about people whose attention and time are chopped up and split between, social media platforms, various other online games that already have established pipelines for content, and already have established worlds, and already have established economies, and already have established release cadences. And none of that shit existed as competition when GTA 5 was coming onto the scene, right? And finding its footing and becoming entrenched in people's online game rotations. GTA 5 did not have to compete at the level that GTA 6 will have to compete at. And GTA 5 didn't have to compete with GTA 4 in order to achieve what it achieved. GTA 6 will have to compete with the juggernaut that is GTA 5. So there is a lot of opportunity for Rockstar to turn this into a runaway success in a live service sense as well. There's, a billion different ways that they could make that happen. And you know what? If there's any team that could do it, Rockstar has a decent enough track record and so many resources at their disposal that I would not be surprised to see them actually fulfill the mandate put forward by the shareholders and, Take-Two. I don't think that's unreasonable or even necessarily unlikely. But there are a lot of things between here and that success, not to mention a lot of time between here and there and that success, that just could throw everything into disarray and end up seeing the most successful video game of all time still be deemed a failure. And I think that's more of an indictment of the industry and maybe the economy and the system at large than it is a narrative about a video game. Because those two ideas seem incongruous, and yet here we are. So yeah, as I say, in a surprising number of episodes, there's going to be a lot to talk about with this as the years go on, and it's going to be fascinating to watch as this all unfolds, because next step is figuring out what GTA Online actually looks like once they're ready to tell us, and then seeing how they can support that and convert players and everything. So there's a long tail on this conversation, the way that there's definitely going to be a long tail on the game. So we'll be around to talk about that, hopefully, and see where it takes us.
Yeah, I just think that this is a very interesting story from the perspective of GTA is basically a shoo-in to be a success by all meaningful metrics that players care about, and yet it could be treated as a failure if it doesn't recoup the amount of money that they want. Generally, I feel like a lot of these organizations, they have a specific return on investment that they want for every dollar spent. And if GTA 6 doesn't hit its live service goals, it probably will not be able to recoup the amount of money that investors expect and that Take-Two expects, which negatively impacts the company, who then can negatively impact the game. So I just think it's a very interesting example of a live service bolt-on, or what started as a live service bolt-on for a game, basically determining the future of GTA. Because if GTA 6 Online doesn't do well, then do we get a GTA 7? Do people think it's worth making another GTA game if it doesn't have the long tail, if it doesn't have the possibility of unlimited recurrent revenue generation? I don't know if it does, especially when this game costs like so many millions, if not billions of dollars to make, right? Like this is a incredibly expensive game that they just made and will be releasing. And I don't know if it will be determined that it is worth it if it cannot consistently generate that recurrent revenue. The only other thing I would say is that on that note, I am kind of intrinsically against these mega expensive game projects. I think generally they're pretty unsustainable and a really bad direction for games to continue to go into. It sets a lot of games up for failure, candidly.
Oh, yeah.
And so we'll see what lessons are ultimately learned from this, but I do fear to some degree that GTA 6 could be the next victim of capitalism in games, which is in a way kind of funny because I feel like it's often a critique of specifically American capitalism and consumerism. So we will see what ultimately happens as the years move forward. I suspect a lot of this won't come to light for quite some time, but it is an interesting thing to talk about because at minimum, it illustrates how all of the games that we love and care about and that people pour their time into creating are ultimately victim to the same economic system that demands exponential growth at any cost, regardless of artistic vision and quality of product.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. It will be interesting. But yeah, if though, Zachary, you do not have any lingering thoughts on Grand Theft Auto and its various machinations, would you mind too terribly if I progressed us towards the thank you component of our episode?
Well, I think that's a wonderful idea, Aaron.
Oh, goodness. I'm going to drop the accent, but what I will not drop is my love for Beach Girl, the provider of our wonderful intro and outro music. And actually, my favorite part of editing every episode is that music every single time. It's a good one. And you can find Beach Girl's other tunes in various different places on the interwebs, such as SoundCloud, Bandcamp, Spotify, YouTube, in limited capacities. And I encourage you to check them out because their music is actually really good, and they're a dear friend of the show, and they deserve your time, attention, and artistic appreciation. So go check out Beach Girl on your platform of choice, and have a good ear time.
And I would just like to thank Mosscat Market real quick. Mosscat Market is, of course, the person that helped us with our style guide for the show and our thumbnail as well, or podcast logo, not thumbnail. So just wanted to shoot a thank you to Mosscat Market. Unfortunately, you are not able to support them financially anymore. They have no way for you to do that. So unless you just want to find out where they live, which I don't advise against.
No.
Or don't advise
I advise against it.
I advise
do.
Against it.
I strongly
at their
advise
house
against
with
that.
money. Don't show up at their house with money.
Don't dox our friend. Zach.
Yeah, I accidentally doxed them on a podcast. The good thing is I actually don't know their address. So
hey, there we
on
go.
Everybody else. But anyway, Mosscat Market's great. Show them some love on Instagram. That's the safest way to do it. That won't get you into legal trouble. And,
this is the last episode of SPR. This will be in a deposition.
Yeah, we're canceled now. We're canceled now, baby. What a trip between having to record this and me suggesting you should show up at someone's house. Anyway, with all that being said, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate all of you. And until next time, goodbye.
Yes, indeed. Don't dox our friend. Goodbye. Don't dox our friend.